Hi Wookiees, welcome to Through the Veil. Here is our first episode of this podcast series where we try to talk about our African culture, more specifically Igbo culture. Today we're going to speak about our origins. Where do we come from? Where do the Igbo people come from? What theories are there? And what do we really think about where we came from? I mean, when we look at foreign countries and other mythologies, we get to see every other society, every other ethnic group around the world, every other race always has an origin story where they came from. And so do we Igbos. We also do have an origin story. My name is Ralu Chukuma, and welcome again to Through the Veil. So speaking about origin stories, we have a couple of origin stories that we would like to explore today. We've seen over the years people come up with different ideas of where Igbo came from. And the fact is, there are a couple of theories out there. And we would like to look at some of these theories. It's always good, it's important for you to note that we're just here to ask questions. We don't have answers. So don't come at me for, for asking questions or creating my own theories in my head based on some research or based on, just what I think, what I feel, gut feeling. However, I'm here to ask questions, and I guess over the series, we'll get to interview more subject matter experts to kind of get their own hands out of it. But I mean, the internet is there for us to educate ourselves, and that's basically what we're trying to do here with this series, is how do we really try to find out who we really are? As Africans, we get to complain about where we are, how messed up our continent is, poverty, just complete lack of morality going on these days in our African space. And, when we sit back and look at, all the resources that we have in terms of natural, in terms of intellectual, in terms of human, it's kind of really sad to see the state we find ourselves in today in 2026. However, when you really delve deeper into the issues that concern our society, you find out that for us Africans, we've lost complete identity. We've lost our culture, we've lost our traditions. We are basically copying and pasting anything Europeans and Westerners and Americans do. And basically that's really not us. And I'm just going to give you a little example. As an Igbo person, in our Igbo cosmology, we have 4 days in a week, and we have 7 weeks in a month, and we have 28 days in every month, and we have 30 months in a year. All of that gone. Kudos to Ethiopia that still maintains their own calendar. All props to them for, making the continent proud. At least one nation in the continent holds on to their own. But I mean, here we are. And then when you look at this identity crisis that we are facing, which is a very deep issue, you get to also find out that Sundays, which we generally know today as a day of worship, or Fridays for the Muslims, right? And that wasn't the case in the old days. We have 4 market days, Eke, Ori, Afo, Nankwo. And these market days, if you were born on either of these market days, that automatically becomes your own day of worship. So someone like me, I was born on Afo Day. And it means for day is my own Sunday, and it's a day I have to keep holy. But when you don't have that anymore, you get to find yourself in turmoil. There's no balance. There's no alignment to the spiritual forces that guide us. A lot of people don't believe in spirituality, which is fine. I mean, kudos to you. However, those of us that do understand the deep impact of that kind of misalignment in your life. But bringing up all of this is just to speak on our identity. How do we expect an Africa tomorrow that is flourishing for billions of Africans, and we don't have an identity? We don't have who we are, what we hold onto that comes, from us. Which is something that we hope that this channel is able to inspire Africans to come back to our ancestry, come back to what we know, come back to our identity, and then forge, a new future for ourselves. Which brings us back to our origin story, because just like the Bible has its origin story of Adam and Eve, we also have our own origin story. We have cosmological origin stories that talks about the beginning of the world, and then we also have origin stories that talk about about how we Igbos were actually where we originated from. And like I said, there are three major theories to that. And then these theories, you can also find them in a book by Nwankwoti Igwe. It's called The Igbo and Their Neighbors and the Broader Igbo Historiography. Well, there are three theories pointed out by Nwankwo. Number one speaks to originating from the soil here in eastern Nigeria. We originated here in eastern Nigeria. The second one says at some point we are all from the same, ethnic or ecto-linguistic culture, where it's called the Kwa language, right? So I'm not an expert here, so go and do your own studies, please. So the Kwa language actually gave birth to so many other Nigerian languages like TV, Igbo language, Yoruba, Idoma, so many more languages. And, tracing back to that language, we can trace ourselves back to coming from, the Middle Belt region of Nigeria, and then over time, spreading and moving down to the southeastern part of Nigeria. That's one theory. Another theory talks about the migration of Eri, the son of God, from Egypt to Omambala, that's Aguleri here in Anambra State. And these are different theories, which to an extent have their own sense and meanings. However, when we look back and we look at what science and archaeology has given to us today, every scientist out there or historian out there, all are in agreement that Homo sapiens or even life started from East Africa, and Homo sapiens also evolved in East Africa and then spread to other parts of the world, even mating with Neanderthals, the western region of the world, and basically populating the rest of the world. So if we're going to stick with that, what that shows us is that if Homo sapiens started from East Africa and migrated around the world, what that means is Igbos, our ancient forebearers, migrated from East Africa westward towards West Africa, right? Over time, migration over time. And somehow, to me, when I look at all of these stories, it resonates a lot. All these theories, I don't think we should choose one over the other. That's my own opinion. I believe that all of them all come together because life has been in existence for millions, some say billions of years. Others say, if we're tracing it back to the Younger Dryas, which is during the flood, and that's about 12,000 years ago. But there was life, there was something going on before the flood, stuff like Atlantis. These places existed. So we're tracing 50,000 years, 100,000 years, who knows? I wasn't there. We're just trying to learn where we all came from, basically. But then when we look at history from, different theories that have been put out there, and we try to make a sense out of it, it only brings us to a couple of ideas, right? I wouldn't stream it down to one idea, but I'm not going to leave anything out. Another part of our origin history comes in from a lot of people, scholars. The debate has been raging for years about how the Igbos have similar cultural similarities, or rather have similar culture with the Israelites. By the Israelites, I mean the Jews, the Hebrews. People try to also find that similarity in the sound of Hebrew and Igbo, right? All of this debate has been going on for years. All well and good. However, when we're bringing up all these stories all together and trying to see how it all makes sense, here's what really pops up in my head. If humanity, or East Africa, Ethiopia being the cradle of humanity, if Homo sapiens actually evolved from East Africa and migrated westward to eastern Nigeria today, it makes sense. Migration. Some of our physical attributes sometimes here in this part of the world are similar with East African, features when it comes to how we look here. Sometimes we get those similarities. So it makes sense that, it's possible we moved westward from East Africa. That's one. Checks out. At some point during that migration, with the Kwa language theory, it's always going to be possible that settlements happened within that Igala axis here in Nigeria, Nupe, northern Nigeria, that whole axis. And then everybody at the time spoke similar language of Kwa. Makes sense also, because migration happens with settlement, continuous migration, settlement, continuous migration, settlement. So you can't throw away that theory. It makes sense. And then we now look at the theory of Eri being the progenitor of the Igbo race, which for me has this shaky side. I don't believe Eri migrated with only Igbos from Egypt to Eastern Africa, to West Africa rather. I believe my own point of view, my own theory, what I think is that he came with his own people and he met people already on ground. And stories and history will show that possibly yes, that was what happened. But the good thing about his arrival was how it influenced the culture, right? And let's think about it for just 1 second, right? When we talk about our similarities in culture with the Israelites, with the Hebrews, and we're talking about Eri's migration to Aguleri here in Anambra State, it all makes sense why we can share such cultural similarities with cultures all the way in the Middle East today. Well, these are some of the theories that we have out there when it comes to just the human side of our origins. But that's not the interesting part of our origin. I think the one that really intrigues me the most is our origin from a cosmological, esoteric, spiritual standpoint. That's where it gets really interesting. I wouldn't delve deep too much into this today because it is deeper than just this episode, because this episode is trying to just cover a few of these theories and then we'll really investigate each of them over time, right? However, when it comes to the cosmological origin of Igbos, we believe in a supreme being, and this is something that is good for Christians and other religious people from other religions to kind of understand. What really freaks me out about how people see our spirituality, I don't like to call it a religion. It's what we practice is a spirituality. And they see it as something that is very crude, see it as something that is diabolic. And they throw away all the science, all the philosophy, all the cosmology that went into play over thousands of years by our ancestors in order to define the world that they found themselves in, which is very interesting. Shows us how do you hate your ancestors and expect to go forward in life? It's a question I always try to ask people every time. There's no race on earth that hates their ancestors apart from, I don't even like calling us black, but apart from the Negro race. Us here in Africa seem to hate our ancestors, and I don't know why. We disregard their struggles, their brilliance, their perseverance, their morals, every single thing that they built. And maybe a little bit of insight as to what really that practice was about and the origin stories. Just imagine that we had our own Bible, for instance, to read the Adam and Eve story. This is basically how it might sound. In the beginning was singularity. And just like the Bible said, John 1, right? Yeah, John 1. It starts with, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. Well, that's almost exactly how it is painted in Igbo cosmology, which is shocking for you to know. But here it goes. The beginning was a singularity. It was all darkness, just the way Genesis tells us. Out of darkness, there was light, right? So it was only darkness. And at that state of singularity, that supreme state of singularity, is what we refer to as Ukwu, right? That's God, the creator and knower of all things, has all the knowledge. And at the point of let there be light was when we went from a singularity to a plurality. It's life came to earth. There was the Okike in Chukwu Okike. There, the creation took place. Thus, Chi Neke, like Chi Na Eke, right? Which is where the duality comes out. So we have the spiritual realm of Chi and Chukwu, and then the created realm, which is this physical realm of Eke, which is what we refer to as create, make. And that was where that split happened and the word became flesh and dwelt among us, going back to the Bible. So our creation story starts with darkness, with one singularity, one being, and then the plurality or duality of that being into Chi Neke, which today everything around us has a Chi. According to Igbo cosmology, this microphone has a Chi, laptop has a Chi, this table has a Chi, this chair has a Chi, my watch has a Chi, everything has a Chi, which is the God in everything that we see. And that is why our forefathers revered nature so much, because they treated nature as though nature was the God that they could see. These little things that we don't take for granted anymore, that we take for granted rather these days, is the reason why morality is at an all-time low in our own world. In our own world, I don't think we've ever lived in such a decayed moral society as we live in today. Because all the things that make sense to us, the most little things that make sense to us, make no sense to us anymore. We've thrown away what belongs to us and we've adopted what doesn't belong to us, and we'll find ourselves in a state of confusion where we don't know where we're neither here nor there, basically. Well, over time in this series, we'll try to break down more about cosmology. We'll try to talk to subject matter experts about it, to educate us and show us the good in our ancestors, what they created, what they were able to achieve. We'll try to bust the myths regarding our spirituality, our culture, our tradition, what things mean, why we do things that way. One of the myths that needs to be broken is that thought of us being a polytheistic religion. No, we're not polytheistic. Being born Catholic, kind of have an idea of people bashing Catholics about worshiping Mary and why do you worship saints and things like that, which from a Catholic doctrine is not so, right? So if the Catholics can disprove such allegations being laid upon their religion, then it's also important for Igbo spiritualists to also debunk some of these claims. We have one supreme being, Chukwu. Every other entity is just what Catholics would depict as saints or angels who you can pray to for guidance, the way Catholics will pray for Saint Michael, the archangel, to protect and guide them from evil. The way Catholics will pray to Saint Anthony of Padua in case something is missing and you want to find what you're missing. It works, trust me. I've said that prayer once and I found what I was looking for after a week of search. The moment I said the prayer, I found it. How? I don't know. Prayers do work. Whatever religion or denomination that you think it doesn't answer God or God doesn't answer them, trust me, you'll be shocked. Everybody gets their prayers answered. Because if we have just one God, that we can all, the white man came here, he searched for every name to call God in our language, and he stuck to the name that our forefathers had given to God. It can't change, because that's the one supreme being. How we get to him differ. It all comes from your culture, where you grew up, location, what came to you, everything similar, one God. As much as we try to break and divide God into different beings, I'm not of that school of thought, basically. Point is, at the end, we need to draw back a little bit. We need to review where we are as people, as Africans. We need to reanalyze. This is over 100 years of westernization that we've been going through. But at some point, with all the technology that we have in front of us, our access to vast knowledge and things, most of these things are not going to be taught to you in school. If you don't go out there to find out really what is what, to know what your beliefs are, then, sorry for you. At this point, I would like to say thank you to our sponsors, Go Digital, for sponsoring this podcast series. Go Digital is a brand and marketing digital service most affordable for African business owners, SMEs, and individuals to easily get their brands going digital in 30 days. You check out their website below, see what offers that they have, and if you use Woke Nation TV on your checkout, you get an extra 5% discount. So as we close to this episode, let's remember that history is rarely a straight line. It's full of rigors and all. However, sometimes a collection of memories, stories and traditions and discovery scattered across generations can all come together over time, and we can all make sense out of what all of these stories and narratives, both oral, written, and however. Stay tuned to this channel and we're going to bring to you more stories, more talk on our history, culture, not just about Igbo history and Igbo culture, generally in Africa, talking about the Orishas, talking about our forgotten gods, talking about things that breaks that barrier that keeps us away from loving our ancestors. This is Through the Veil, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Thank you.